everybody, this is Shri. Welcome back to my channel, Vedic Living. Today we are going to talk about the first 2 weeks of this new year 2022, the first 2 weeks of January, and what's happening around the world in these 2 weeks. As you have seen, the month of December, things were really heated up, literally. We've seen one of the most warmest Christmases here in the south part of United States. And also, as you know, in the state of Colorado, thousands of people were evacuated from a few towns because of wildfires in the month of December. That's the nature of Mars in the sign of Scorpio and even Aries, because Mars rules those two signs. So things are literally heating up. There's fires, there's, you know, the temperatures are warmer than usual. So that's to be expected. You'll see the similar kind of pattern when Mars comes into Aries, although Aries will also bring in a kind of tendency to fight and wars and such things. But Scorpio, typically things are very hidden. It's under the surface, as I told you in the last video. So a lot of things are happening in society, which is kind of brewing. You can feel the energy, but it's not out yet. Now, coming to the month of January, and like I said, before I go into the predictions, remember, if you don't know where your planets are in your chart, you can always go to my website, go to the free chart calculator, and enter your information, and you should be able to see your chart. So you can see where all the planets are and connect the dots when you listen to my YouTube video. And also, another thing that I want to mention is while you're at my website, make sure you sign up for my free newsletter that I send out every month with very detailed descriptions of what's going on in the sky and what's coming up predictions wise. Okay, so now let's go into our predictions for the next 2 weeks. As you guys know, Kala Sarpa Yoga is still in effect. It'll be going on till the month of April in 2022. And the whole idea of Kala Sarpa Yoga is, the planets are all on one side of the chart. So what that means is it gives rise to a large polarity among the population. Like people are very biased and uneven. There's no neutrality here. So it's either right or wrong. It's either black or white. So that's the thing with Kala Sarpa Yoga, because since the planets are all on one side of the chart, all the energies are focused in that direction, even in your personal life. So you can see in your personal chart, if you see all the planets on one side, especially right now in the sky, they're all transiting on one side of your chart. Those are the areas that are pronounced. That's where you will see the most activity in the next 4 months until the month of April, until this Kala Sarpa Yoga is in effect. So similarly in the world, you'll see a lot of polarized opinions. People are not willing to budge. They'll be, stuck on what they're thinking, very judgmental. So there's going to be a lot of biased and, uneven kind of tendency in the society. Now, the second thing is Mars is still in Scorpio, as we were talking about it. And what's going to happen is it's towards the last few degrees of Scorpio. Right now, it's around 18 to 20 degrees of Scorpio. And it'll be going through the sign of Scorpio in the month of January. And as it gets to the last few degrees of the sign of Scorpio, that's what we call Gandhanta. Gandhanta is the last few degrees of a water sign or the first few degrees of a fire sign. And this is a very sensitive spot for any planet to be in. Even in your personal chart, if you have planets in these degrees, you would see in those areas of your life a feeling of being out of control, a feeling of drowning, just not being able to control those areas of your life. Similarly, when Mars goes through Scorpio and around January 12th to January 19th, so that 1 week, it's going to be Gandhanta. So what that means is, first of all, Gandhanta is in the last few degrees of a water sign or the first few degrees of a fire sign. So you will see severe weather tendencies, storms, floods, all of that can happen. And I think it's even more so with this time frame because, around that same date, around the mid of January, January 18th to 20th, Uranus is also going to be stationed. So, what we mean by stationed is it's not that the planet has stopped moving, it's just from our perspective, the planet looks like it's not moving. And whenever a planet is stationed, even in your personal chart or in transits, when we look at world predictions, when a planet is stationed, it's always telling you, look here, pay attention to me. So it's the most strongest planet in the chart. Now, with Mars being in Gandhanta during that week, January 12th to 19th, like I said, and Uranus at the same time being stationary, it's decreasing in speed and then it's stationary. That means that these two planets, the meanings of these two planets are going to be very foremost. So, like I said, Mars Gandhanta could mean floods and natural things with earth changes, earthquakes, and Uranus also kind of stands for unexpected earth changes, right? There could be earthquakes, volcanoes getting active. And remember, if you step aside from the weather and the earth kind of meanings of these planets, Uranus also stands for revolutionary thought, change, transition, right? So when Uranus is stationary, and that too in the sign of Aries, we are talking about sidereal degrees, that could mean new thoughts coming up in society, new belief systems being born, right? And also it can mean that there are new developments, new technological advancements, because Uranus stands for technology. And again, going back to the other meaning of Uranus, which is earth changes and earthquakes and sudden accidents and such things, that can also happen. Um, with these two planets in these degrees at that exact week, January 12th to 19th, expect these changes to be happening around the world. And for you in your personal chart, if you have any planets in Aries around the degrees where Uranus is going stationary, then remember that those areas of your life can also be impacted. The house that Uranus is in, which is Aries, so if that is your seventh house, it could be relationships. If that's your 10th house, it could be career. Because whenever, like I said, when a planet goes stationary, it's saying, look here, pay attention to me. So all your, you'll see a lot of changes in that area of your life. And especially with Uranus, it's usually an upheaval because it is an unstable energy. But at the same time, Uranus can also be um, extreme, like I said, advancement. So you could have difficulties out of which some change could come about, which can cause you to advance in life or evolve, right? So that's one thing that you need to be looking for. Now, the new moon for the month of January is on January 2nd, and it is happening in the nakshatra called Purvashada, okay, in the sign of Sagittarius. Now, what that means is, first of all, you have all the meanings of Sagittarius and all the meanings of Purvashada. So let's look at both of that, right? So first of all, Sagittarius itself stands for truth, justice, okay? And what is really interesting is that the nakshatra Purvashada also stands for those meanings, right? Because the symbol of the nakshatra Purvashada is a fan. And the whole idea symbolically is to fan information. So it stands for media, it stands for news agencies and organizations, and it's about disseminating information in the population. Now, the star that forms this nakshatra, one of the stars, is Cos Borealis. Okay, and this star is the tip of the archer's bow in the Sagittarius zodiac. If you can imagine the zodiac, the bow of the archer, the tip of that bow is Cos Borealis, which is one of the stars in the nakshatra Purvashada. Now, what does that mean? Think of a bow. So things are very direct, very harsh. It's straight communication. There's no sugarcoating anything, especially if you have Purvashada very strong in your chart itself, like your moon is there or your sun is there, your ascendant is there, then that's how you are as well, right? You don't like to sugarcoat things. You're always very direct and very strict and straight in your communication. This star is very, very philosophical and judgmental to some extent. They want justice to be served. There is right and wrong. There's black and white. There is no middle gray area. Okay. So with this, the new moon happening in this sign, you're going to see, and like I said, Sagittarius itself stands for truth and justice. You're going to see a lot more cases in court, maybe antitrust cases, and high-profile cases where people could be implicated, because it's about giving out justice. It's about your past karmas catching up to you and demanding payment. Okay, and again, extreme cases of Purvashada, if it's in your chart, or right now, since the new moon is happening there on January 2nd, extreme cases may be too much of judgment, too much of polarization. Okay, so it can be like really, really like over the top, wanting things to be right. So you might see people standing up for what they believe in. There may be riots. There may be people who want to come out and say this is wrong. We need this to be this way, because all of this stands for Purvashada and Sagittarius. Now, the deity of Purvashada Nakshatra is the god of water. So there's seas and oceans being involved here. So you may be seeing shipping companies, things with shipping companies. There may be changes in the sea, that kind of stuff, like anything to do with water. And again, like I said, it's the fan. It's about spreading information and knowledge. So there can be issues with mass media. And I've talked about this a lot in previous videos. Whenever we talk about future predictions, I'm seeing huge changes in media coming up this year, right? The news and media. So that's another thing that you'll see in this month, because the new moon, wherever the new moon happens in a particular month, that is the sensitive point for that month. And it's happening in Sagittarius and it's happening in Purvashada. So that both these meanings coming together, like I said, those like the truth and justice and judgment and media and all of that is going to come out into the open. So you'll see a lot of that happening. Okay, and again, with the Kala Sarpa Yoga, things are polarized anyway. So there's going to be strong judgment against things. And people around you in your personal life too, you will see people either they are completely on one side of the pendulum or completely on the other side of the pendulum. There's no middle neutral area. Okay, so you need to find your balance. You need to find your core, and kind of you may not want to fight, but you can still kind of understand the planetary energies in the sky and know that this will pass. Okay, now that's the new moon. Now, one more thing that's going to happen is Mercury retrograde. Mercury is going retrograde this month. It happens 3 times in a year, right? So the Mercury retrograde will be happening from January 14th till the 3rd of February, okay? And when Mercury goes retrograde, remember all the things that have to do with Mercury, which is communications, IT, computers, technology, traveling, all those areas you may face issues in, right? People have issues with their phone or their computer, or if they're traveling, they lose their luggage. So just remember, Mercury retrograde is not a great time to start something new. It's always a time to reassess and examine your life and kind of come up with what you want to do once the retrograde is over. And when Mercury goes direct is when those projects need to be kicked off. So January 14th till the 3rd of February. Those are the weeks that Mercury is going to be retrograde. So remember that. It's in the sign of Capricorn. So the next 2 times that this happens, it will be in earth signs, right? Because in a year, if Mercury is going retrograde in a specific element, then those are the elements that it will go retrograde in the rest of the year. So this time on January 14th, it's in the sign of Capricorn. Now again, Capricorn in United States chart is its second house, and that has to do with free speech, people coming out and saying what they want to say. And again, it also stands for finances, so economy, your social values, that's your second house. Everything is going to change. There's probably going to be change in banking and finances and the whole cryptocurrency or the decentralization. You'll see a lot of discussions in those areas in this month, especially because Mercury is going retrograde in the second house for United States. So that's one thing to watch out for. Now, specifically in United States chart, Jupiter is in the 3rd house for United States, which is the sign of Aquarius. And third house once again stands for media. I'm seeing the same trend across all the transits that are happening in the sky. That it has to do with communications, with media, with news agencies, and all of that. And remember, the planet Neptune has been in the sign of Aquarius since the year 2000, around 2009, I think. And what's going to happen is one of the main transits or the main um, conjunctions this year is going to be the Jupiter Neptune conjunction. I say it's important because it's not a very often kind of conjunction. It's pretty rare. Okay, and the last time this happened was in December 2009 in the same sign in Aquarius in the third house for United States. This is very telling. The reason is because whenever Jupiter and Neptune has conjuncted in the past, and this, like I said, was in December 2009, you would have seen that mass media or news, the whole concept of news underwent a major upheaval because that's the time when all these the smartphones came in, and from people stopped watching the 6 p.m. news. They started going towards on demand news applications or apps on your phone, and everything, the weather, the news, the daily updates or whatever, everything was happening on the phone. So that shift happened from watching TV to get your news to to going towards the other kinds of technology. So that mass upheaval or change or transformation in mass media and news happened in December 2009. And if you remember, I think there was a lot of backlash towards Google and Yahoo, saying that they were providing the news which is not correct, and you should be watching news on TV. And eventually, the transition happened. So that's what's the same kind of transition or conjunction is going to happen in this year around the month of April when Jupiter and Neptune once again come together. And once again, it's in the sign of Aquarius, which is the third house for United States. And third house stands for communication, media, and news. So I think this whatever is happening now is kind of building towards that change. There's going to be another shift in the way people get their news or they understand the news. Even now you can see there's a lot of things happening in the sense that they don't believe the news that's being fed to them, right? There could be some um, thoughts about, is this right? Or where do I get the right news? Where do I get the truth? So that transition is going to happen towards people wanting to find the other areas or channels or websites where they can find the absolute truth and not just what the news agencies are feeding them. So, just like we had in December 2009, there's going to be another big shift in the way people gather news around the world and the way they assimilate it and the way they understand it and the way they go and look for the right kind of agencies or websites or even social media platforms. So, there's going to be a huge transition in mass media and news in this year. And whatever is happening now is kind of building up to that. And of course, everything in life or in the world is cyclic. So like I said, this happened in December 2009. It's going to happen this year, and it's going to happen another 20 years from now when the same conjunction happens again, right? When Jupiter conjuncts Neptune. So we have to remember that it's not a bad thing. It's just something that, people evolve. They start looking for newer things, and they start finding those new things, and then the transition in society happens. This particular transit that's happening in the third house for United States, combined with the new moon in Purvashada, which is also to do with mass media, and the Kala Sarpa Yoga, where people are really polarized and their opinions are very judgmental. All of that together, it's all together painting the same picture: a huge change in society, a huge change in social values. It's already happened past 2 years. We're not realizing it because the pace at which it is happening is so slow. We don't realize, but if you think back to 2019, your life was completely different, and now it's changed. So that's what we talk about, the change in social values. Now, what's going to happen is once this Mercury retrograde is over on February 3rd, all the planets in the sky are direct until April. So that will give a huge momentum. You'll feel the sudden push of energy, things, everything moving forwards, huge changes happening in society, in news, in mass media. Everything that you see, you'll see a huge push forward, an impetus, a momentum, especially because all the planets in the sky are going direct for the next 3 months. So remember, whenever planets are direct, everything is moving forward. And it's very, usually there's one or two planets which are retrograde. So these 3 months when everything is direct, there's going to be a huge momentum, everything's going to progress forward with a high speed. Okay. So remember that. Now, between all of this, and I mentioned this at the end of all my videos, of course, all of these changes happening outside, we need to be more and more focused on bringing our energy and our connecting to our spiritual self within ourselves, because all these changes, like I said, I like to mention how something that's happening now, what happened last time when the same conjunction happened. The reason I mentioned that is because I need you to understand that what's happening now is not a very unique thing. It has happened before. The planets are constantly moving in the sky. Everything in life is cyclic. History is cyclic, right? So you need to remember that and connect to your core, connect to your belief system, stay with it. And of course, if there's something that is changing it from outside and you feel like there is a positive change needed, go for it. But otherwise, remember to connect to yourself and your core and find that balance. Because with everything that's happening in the sky right now, especially like I said, starting Feb 3rd, all the planets are going direct for the next 3 months. You're going to see a huge high speed transformation happening in society. And you need to be ready for that. So find your core, find yourself, and connect to yourself. Okay. So, like I always say, remember to subscribe to my channel. I'll come back with more videos on topics that I want to teach. And then, of course, these predictions will come in every 2 weeks. And make sure you subscribe to my newsletter. And I'll be sending out the free newsletter every month with a lot more information and a lot more predictions. And subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time.